Hey guys, what's up? It's finally race month and the 2022 F1 season is starting in a couple of days. So if you're new to F1, you've just seen Drive to Survive and you want to know more about the sport, then this video is for you. I'm going to lay down all the basics of Formula 1 so that when the lights go out in Bahrain on 20th of March, you know what you're looking at. Don't be that guy who asks their F1 friends, what is this, what is that? This video should clear most of the things for you. So let's start with the basics and I'm going to talk about the teams first. There are 10 teams in Formula 1 and each team has 2 drivers. So basically there are 20 drivers on track racing, and if I talk about the teams, you must have heard about some of them. For example, Mercedes AMG, McLaren F1, Red Bull, you must have heard about these for sure. And if you see, there are 10 teams and each team has 2 drivers. So basically Lewis Hamilton is with Mercedes right now, you have George Russell for 2022, Max Verstappen, the leading world champion, is with Red Bull Racing, you've got Sebastian Vettel with Aston Martin, Fernando Alonso with Alpine Renault. So basically these are all the drivers and these are the teams, and you might be wondering, why is there Ferrari written after Alfa Romeo? Why is there Red Bull written after AlphaTauri? So let me explain. So basically, even though there are 10 teams right now, the companies that make the engines are only 4. It's Ferrari, Mercedes, Renault and Red Bull Powertrains, which was previously Honda. So till 2021, you had Mercedes, Renault, Ferrari and Honda, and now you have, instead of Honda, you have Red Bull Powertrains. So basically, a lot of these teams can't make their own engines, so they buy from the supplier. Alfa Romeo and Haas use Ferrari engines and so on. And AlphaTauri is technically like a sister team of Red Bull. Both of these teams are owned by Red Bull, and Red Bull junior drivers come in AlphaTauri first, and if they are good, they are promoted to Red Bull. So basically, these are all the teams and the engines. Now let's talk about the race weekend structure. So this year we've got 23 races. The Russian GP was just cancelled recently because of the ongoing crisis, but I think they might replace it. If they don't, we will have 22 races, but otherwise we have 23 races this year, and the race weekend structure is like this. It's spread over 3 days, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. If we talk about Friday, we've got 2 practice sessions of 1 hour each right now. So basically you've got FP1 and FP2, and in these sessions all of the drivers and the teams, they run different modes, different setups on the car, and they see what's working on the track, what's not working on the track. So basically they're just configuring car for the next day. On Saturday you've got 1 more practice session, which is FP3, and after that it's qualifying. Now qualifying is very important because it sets the grid for Sunday. So basically this is the racing grid, and you have to figure out who's going to be first, who's going to be second, who's going to be third and so on. So basically the qualifying sets that. Now when we talk about qualifying, it happens on a Saturday, and basically it's divided into 3 parts: Q1, Q2 and Q3. In Q1, basically all the 20 drivers go around the track and they set a time. The fastest driver is first, the second fastest is second, the third fastest is third. So that way you get like a list of 20 fastest drivers, and the bottom 5 are eliminated. So these 5 guys are the bottom 5 on the racing grid. Next day they are eliminated, and the top 15 then move on to Q2. Now in Q2, all the previous times are deleted. We start with a clean slate, and the top 15 drivers once again set a time around the track, and this time the top 10 drivers are selected and then they are pushed to Q3. And Q3 also applies the same logic once again. All the times are deleted, and then the top 10 people set a time, and then whoever is fastest is awarded the pole position. Basically they start first on the grid, then the second fastest is second on the grid and so on. So this is how you set a racing grid for Sunday. Since last year, Formula 1 has also introduced this new concept called sprint racing, and it's applicable for only 3 race weekends. So when we'll have a race at Imola, when we'll have the race at Red Bull Ring, and when we'll have the race in Brazil, all of these 3 locations will have sprint racing. So the structure of a sprint weekend is slightly different from a normal weekend. So basically on a sprint weekend, you have a sprint race on Saturday, which is like a short 30-minute race which sets the grid for Sunday. So basically I'll explain. So on Friday, for a sprint weekend, you will have the first practice session, then you will have a qualifying. Now this qualifying will set the grid for Saturday's race. Saturday we have a short sprint race of 30 minutes. So basically all the drivers are going to race, all the typical rules apply, and whoever is first will be first on the grid for Sunday. Whoever is last will be last on the grid for Sunday. So this is how all the qualifying, free practice and sprint qualification works. And when you watch qualifying sessions, one more thing you will see are these things called S1, S2, S3, and you will see these green, yellow and purple lines when a driver is setting a time along the track. So basically every track is divided into 3 sectors: sector 1, 1, sector 2, sector 3, which is S1, S2, S3, so that you can figure out which driver is going faster in which sector and how are things going on and so on. And when a driver is setting a time around the lap, you will see either a yellow line, green line, or a purple line. So basically a purple line means that that particular sector is the fastest that is set by this driver. For example, if Lewis Hamilton finishes one sector in 18 seconds and no other driver has done it in less than 18 seconds, then he will get purple in sector 1. Similarly, green means personal best. So basically, let's say if Lewis Hamilton has done an 18-second fastest sector, which is the purple one, Max Verstappen did 18.5 in one of the laps, and then later in one of his laps he did 18.2 instead of 18.5. So that's his personal best. So that's why he gets green. Now if he beats Lewis Hamilton's time, for example, if he does it in like 17 seconds, then he'll get the purple line. I hope you get it. And yellow basically means it's just that you're not beating the fastest, you're neither beating your personal record, and it's basically, for example, if Max does one sector in 18 seconds and at the same time in the next lap he does the same sector in 18.5 seconds, he'll get a yellow line. Now let's talk about the race weekend. So the final main race that we see on Sunday is around 2 hours long. It's basically from 55 to 75 laps depending on the size of the track, and there are a couple of things that you should note while watching the race. For example, the tires. There are 7 different kinds of tires in F1. Basically they are denoted by C1, C2, C3, C4, C5. These are used when it's dry condition and normal conditions, no rain or nothing like that. And then there are 2 other kinds of tires, which are intermediate and wet. As you can see, intermediate and wet tires have these grooves. Intermediate have a little bit of groove, so when it's light rain and not heavily raining, you can use intermediate tires, and when it's heavily crazily raining, you have to go to the wet tires. Obviously these tires are slower compared to the C1 to C5 tires that we spoke about. Now on a normal weekend without rain, between C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, C1 is the hardest tire and C5 is the softest tire, and they have to select a range of 3. For example, depending on the track, they can select C1, C2, C3, C2, C3, C4, or C3, C4, C5. You cannot randomly select C1 and C4 and C5. You have to go in that order, and each of these tires have color code. For example, for a race weekend, let's say there are 3 tires, soft, medium and hard. The softest tire is red, the medium tire is yellow, and the hard tire is white. And you might be wondering what is the difference between these tires. So basically, softest tire has the maximum grip and it will give you the fastest speed and times around the track. So in qualifiers, majority of the people will set their time with a soft tire because they have to go fastest around the track. But the thing with soft tires is they don't last that long. So they might only run for like 15-20 laps depending on the weather, sometimes less, sometimes more. So that's why we have medium and hard tires. Hard tires last the longest and they are the slowest among the lot. So I think you can understand medium lies somewhere in between, and you have to strategize and use the set of these tires in your race so that you make the minimum amount of pit stops and you don't lose your tire life when you're racing with other people. And talking about pit stops, this is the fanciest thing about F1. It's genuinely a work of art. Literally a team of people changing 4 tires in less than 2 seconds. It's absolutely crazy. And it's so crucial for F1 as well because people have won races and people have also lost races because of some mess ups at pit stop. If you've watched last year's season, you know Bottas's pit stop at Monaco was horrible. So basically pit stops, everyone has to make at least one unless it's raining. If it's raining, you can go without a pit stop. I think that's up to the race director to decide. But you at least have to make one pit stop, and a lot of teams, strategize their pit stops so that they lose minimum amount of time, because even though a tire change takes 2 seconds, you have to come into the pit lane, then go inside, then you have to come out once again. There's a speed limit in pit lane, so you lose anywhere between 20 to 30 seconds in a pit stop. So that's why you have to plan it very, very well, and they are one of the crucial parts of Formula 1 racing. And one more thing that a lot of people get confused about are these scoreboards or timing sheets when you watch the race. So basically, when it says leader, it mentions the time gap of all the drivers with respect to the leader. For example, in this photo, Verstappen is the leader, and if you see Hamilton, it says plus 5.3. So that basically means the time gap between Verstappen and Hamilton is plus 5.3 seconds. And when it says interval, it basically means the distance between 2 drivers. So in this photo, it says Verstappen is leading and Hamilton is plus 10.9. So basically, Hamilton is 10.9 seconds behind Verstappen, and then it says Bottas is plus 2.9. So basically the time gap between Hamilton and Bottas is plus 2.9. In the original photo, you see Bottas plus 7.5. So basically Bottas is 7.5 seconds behind Verstappen. So when it says leader, that's the time gap with the leader. But when it says interval, it's the time gap between the driver above the current drivers. And when a driver is within less than 1 second of time gap with the driver ahead of him, the driver gets DRS. So depending upon the the track, a track might have 1 or 2 DRS zone, and a couple of meters before the DRS zone, you have a DRS detection meter. So for example, if Hamilton is first and Verstappen is second, and when they cross the DRS detection zone, Verstappen is within 1 second of Hamilton, then on the next DRS straight, Verstappen gets DRS. What is DRS? You might have seen that when these guys are racing, a lot of times the rear wing opens. So when you have DRS, you can open your rear wing, and that gives you additional speed at the straight. So it helps in overtaking. So to have DRS, you need to be within 1 second of the driver ahead of you. So that's DRS. And then there is one more thing called ERS. That's basically the electric batteries that these F1 hybrid engines have. You might have heard about charging the batteries, using the batteries. So basically these drivers, when they drive around the track, if they use the battery, they get excess of power which they use to overtake people and to stay ahead. But then these batteries deplete. They are basically like a phone battery. If you use them too much, they'll come down too quickly, and then it takes time to charge them once again. So drivers usually only use this when they want to overtake. For example, if Hamilton is ahead and Verstappen is behind and he has DRS and he's fast, then Hamilton will try to use the batteries to keep him behind. And the last thing that I want to talk about is points, because I told you everything about F1. These guys are competing, driving at such high speeds. It's so dangerous. What are they competing for? So there are two championships basically, a constructors championship, which is basically for the team, and then there is a drivers championship. So for the driver, this is how the points are distributed. The first driver gets 25 points, the second one gets 18 points, and so on. So the top 10 drivers get points. The bottom 10, they do not get any points, sorry. And then there is one more extra point for the fastest lap. So whoever sets the fastest lap during the race, that guy will get one extra point. So basically that's how all the drivers get points, and these get accumulated, and at the end of the season, the driver with the highest number of points is the world champion. If we talk about constructors, that's basically every team has 2 drivers. So after every race, you add the points of both of these drivers and it goes to the constructors. So at the end of the year, whichever team has highest constructor points wins the constructors trophy. So that basically should cover majority of the basics. If you want to get into F1 and want to watch the 2022 season, there are still a lot of things like, for example, penalties, but then that is a very different area. Every action has a different penalty. Basically, if the race director finds that someone has done an illegal move, or if they have done something wrong, or if they've crashed, whoever is at fault gets a 5-second, 10-second penalty, grid penalty, and so on. I'm going to cover that in a separate video, but basically you just have to think about this. If someone does wrong, they get a penalty. And then there are also flags. For example, if there is an accident, then if it's not very major and it can be cleared, the race director deploys a safety car. So basically there is a safety car, everyone has to drive behind it in a controlled manner, no overtaking, nothing like that. And sometimes if the accident is too major and you need to stop the race, the race director will call for a red flag. So everyone has to enter the pit lane, nobody races, and then after everything has been cleared, the race restarts. So I'm going to go into this in depth in one of the later videos, but as of now, this should cover everything, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching it. If you guys want more F1 videos, please let me know in the comments. What should I cover? What do you want to know? Let me know. And I also wanted to know where the majority of my audience is coming from, because I'm from India. I was confused if I should make these videos in English or Hindi, so just let me know your preference in the comments. I'm keeping it English for now because I don't know where the majority of the audience is going to come from. If it's international, let's keep it English, but I want to know your preference in the comments. I'll also put a poll link in the description. You can go and vote there. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed watching it, please hit the like button. If you didn't like it, press the dislike button twice and let me know your thoughts and suggestions in the comments. That's it for now. Stay safe, and I'm going to be back in the notifications very, very soon. Bye.